Everybody, so I took a little nap, lay in front of the wood stove, and woke up to put some fresh wood in it and back up and going. And I tell you what, it just can't quite keep up. It is 7 degrees out, and according to weather.com, it is, let me refresh it, 9 degrees. So I think it's safe to say that back in early 2018, when weather.com said it was 8 degrees, it's probably closer to 5 or 6 degrees here during that time when, of course, I had the wood stove going wide open. It couldn't keep up. And of course, I had the thermostat set higher back then, and you can see it's reading 64 in here now, which is the set point. It's actually 65 in here. It's just these thermostats like to lie to you when the indoor temperature is plus or minus 1 degree of your set point. I have a nice video over on QCooler channel that talks about this. Here in the computer room, it is 59 degrees. So we are going to go ahead and turn the central heat on for a little bit and probably use the auxiliary heat, because at 7 degrees a heat pump just isn't going to quite do it. So let's go ahead and knock this up a little bit. I hear it running. I think the compressor kicked on. That's probably the most brutal startup it's ever had. Not the first time that unit has ran in temperatures like this, but it's probably the first time it's ever been off all night and then had to come on in single digit weather like that. So it'll probably take a moment. This thing will probably bring on the auxiliary heat, because it's simply not enough heat out there. Well, the thing is, when it's that cold outside, heat pumps just cannot keep up on their own. Plus, we got this super cool air in the rooms of the house, so start circulating that air like that, it's going to actually bring more of that cool air into the thermostat, and the thermostat's going to be like, oh, we need to bring on the second stage. This thing's saying only 62 degrees. Well, that's because it just came on, and of course the ducts up in the ceiling are still pretty cool. So right now it's not really adding any, anything to the. It's not really adding much any heat right now. We'll wait and see if that auxiliary kicks on. I know the camera is overexposing this. There we are, 63. Wait and see if I hear a click from the thermostat. I'm gonna have to go in there and really jack it up, because this thermostat, I think, is set for economy. Whereas it waits a little bit before it tries to bring on the heat strips. It waits to see if the heat pump can handle the load on its own. So you can see it's slowly rising. 64.2, so we're getting near supposedly what the return air is, but we know in the kitchen it's probably a little cooler. So we're probably adding a few degrees, which ain't much. So yeah, that's crazy. So it's slowly climbing. That's how heat pumps work. It will slowly climb. The air actually does feel a little warm. And according to the thermostat, it's actually satisfying. It's coming up a little bit. Thing is, we try to keep that auxiliary heat off because it's very expensive to operate. It's the backup heat strips, which in this home are 10 kW. Like the single wide also is 10 kW. Yeah, this ain't really the most accurate. I mean, that vent's pretty high up. But well, back in here, guys, I'm sorry if this video is all over the place. I mean, it's just my little documentary here. So the air coming out of the register, it doesn't feel really warm. It doesn't feel cool though. And that's kind of how heat pumps work when it's super cold out like this. They are actually still a little more efficient than straight electric heat, even when they're running in conditions like this. So it looks like it's actually going to satisfy. So I'll let that run, and that's still showing 59. It's probably, I don't know, maybe it's just cool. Maybe it's just cooler because it's closer to the wall over here. I mean, usually when the central heat runs for a little bit, this room will sort of balance out. But this is basically a repeat of 2018, when my wood stove was basically acting as the primary heat source, and the heat pump was acting as the second stage. Because that's pretty much what we're doing right now. Let me get some light here that we can see the thermostat. So when you look at the thermostat, if it brings on the heat strip, it will say auxiliary heat on it. It says heat on right now, so apparently it's satisfied with what it's getting. Yeah, I can't really tell for sure if this thing's getting accurate reading. I mean, yeah, 70 degrees. So getting a little bit of rise there, and maybe that's all it needs, you know, with the wood stove going. Yeah, crazy stuff, guys, crazy stuff. Okay, guys, it's actually a few minutes later. It's still running. So now the air coming out of the vents is supposedly 73 degrees. You can see it's still slowly climbing. Again, that's how these things work. They build up, I think the way it works is as they build up head pressure. Because this is basically an air conditioner running backwards. It is extracting heat out of 7-degree air outside. And it's funny, my mom a couple weeks ago was talking about this. And she's like, well, there's no heat out there. It's like, well, yeah, there is. There is heat out there. It's just when it gets below freezing, these things have a harder time extracting heat from the outdoor air, but they can do it. So this is, again, literally a repeat of 2018, when it was so cold outside that the wood stove needed help heating the place, and just the first stage of a heat pump system was able to help it without auxiliary heat. And it actually does feel noticeably warmer in here now. So it's actually satisfied. No, it's still running. It does say 66 in here, so it has come up a little bit. This is one, now for those of you who have heat pumps, I'd say it's a good example why it's a good idea to spend a little extra money on a quality thermostat that will allow you to adjust the auxiliary heat settings to where it will not immediately try to bring on the heat strips, because there's many times where the heat pump itself can handle it, can handle the load that's put on it. It just takes a little while. And this thing could run for a long time at first stage and bring the temperature up when it's on, and still use less energy than the heat strips coming on with it. So yeah, 66, we're assuming at 66 degrees is the return air temperature, and 73 degrees is the supply. So we're getting 7 degrees of rise across the coil when it's 7 degrees outside. Whereas if it was like 45 or 50 degrees, the air coming out of the vent would be about 90 to 95 degrees. So it just comes to show just how much these heat pumps suffer when it's really cold outside. Okay, everybody, so it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. It's still just 10 degrees outside, and I'm having to let the wood stove die down because, well, there's a whole lot of embers in it, and I don't have much room for logs, so it's still putting a little bit of heat, but it started cooling off in here, so I just heard the thing bring on the auxiliary. I said, screw it, just throw the heat strips on for a little bit, because it was getting pretty cold in here too. So I figured I'd show you guys an example of what a heat pump will do when you have the auxiliary heat on. So you remember how it was getting like 70 degree air in the last clip? Now we're getting almost 120 or 113. So we're in gas furnace territory as far as heat output goes, but boy, does it use a lot of energy.